Welcome to the second video of 2.2. Today we're going to finish up talking about operations with integers. Just a reminder of the learning objectives for this section. Make sure you have them written down somewhere. So we're going to start out by analyzing patterns of products of integers with same and different signs and recognizing multiplication by 0 as 0. So now that we've learned how to add and subtract integers, it's time to tackle multiplying them. Remember that an integer is the set of whole numbers and their opposites. There are a few vocab words that can help us when multiplying. The first is a factor. The numbers that are multiplied are called factors. The second is product. We multiply two or more factors to get a product. Below are some multiplication facts for 5. Notice that the products show a pattern. Suppose that you did not know that the product of 5 times 0. How could you use the pattern shown to determine that product? Well, if you notice here, 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times 3 is 15. You're subtracting 5. And then to get there, you subtract 5 again. You subtract 5 again. So to get here, you would still subtract 5. So 5 minus 5 would get us 0. So keeping on with that pattern, this is the same one we just had. So the minus 5, minus 5, minus 5, minus 5. You should know to subtract 5 again to get a negative 5. And then subtract 5 again to get a negative 10. So when we're multiplying integers together, there are rules for positive and negative. If we multiply two negatives together, the resulting answer is positive. If we multiply two positives together, the result is a positive number. And if we multiply one of each, then our answer is going to be negative. So what we can do is we can multiply just the numbers without looking at positive or negative first, and then after that we can come back to these rules to figure out whether our answer will be positive or negative. So for this one, negative 4 times negative 3, I can just do 4 times 3 and I get 12. And if you'll notice, two negatives, when they're both negative, that means our answer is going to be positive. So we get a positive 12. Negative 5 times 8, and again I can just do 5 times 8, which gives me 40. Okay, so now I look at the signs. I've got one positive and one negative. When they're one of each, my answer is going to be negative, so my answer would be a negative 40. So now I've got three numbers, so I need to break it up. I can pick two numbers to multiply together first, so let's do negative 8 times negative 3. So in order to do that, I just do 8 times 3 and get 24. Both of my signs are negative, so my answer is going to be a positive 24. So I have 24 times negative 2 now, which means I can do 24 times 2, giving me 48. And if I look at my signs, one's positive, one's negative, that means my answer is going to be negative 48. Go ahead and pause the video, try out these three, and then hit play and see how you did. Okay, so the first one, I can take 9 times 3 and get 27, and then I look at the sign of both. They're both negative, so that means my answer is going to be positive 27. For the second one, 3 times 12 gives me 36. I look at the sign. I've got one of each, one positive, one negative, which means my answer is going to be negative 36. For the last one, multiplying three numbers together, I multiply the first two together, negative 4 and 3. So I multiply 4 times 3 and get 12. And I look at the signs, it's one of each, so it's a negative 12. So I've got negative 12 times negative 2. I can do 12 times 2 to get 24. Both of my signs are negative, so that means my answer will be a positive 24. So now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use division. And then we're going to recognize that division by 0 is undefined. So another important step in learning how to compute with integers is learning how to divide them. You can look for patterns in a sequence of quotients just as you looked for patterns in the sequence of products earlier. These patterns will help you to understand the rules for dividing integers. So if you'll notice with these, we're dividing by 2 every time. Okay, so we're taking 6 divided by 2 and get 3, 4 divided by 2 to get 2, 2 divided by 2 to get 1. You'll notice we're subtracting 1 every time. So if I wanted to know negative 2 divided by 2, I would subtract 1 from 0 and get a negative 1. And then if I wanted to do negative 4 divided by 2, I'd subtract 1 from negative 1 and get a negative 2. So just like with multiplication, there are rules for dividing integers. Again, it depends on the signs of each. So if you take a negative and divide it by a negative, you're going to get a positive. If you take a negative and divide it by a positive, you're going to get a negative number. And a positive divided by a positive is also positive. Now this middle one, it could also be flipped. So if you take a negative divided by a positive, you'll get negative. And if you take a positive divided by a negative, you'll still get a negative. So one of each, it's negative. So for this one, find the quotient negative 33 divided by negative 3. I can just take 33 divided by 3 and get 11. If you look at the signs of both, they're both negative, so my answer is going to be a positive 11. Same thing, negative 20 divided by 5, I can take 20 divided by 5 and get 4. 1 negative, 1 positive means my answer is going to be a negative 4. Go ahead and pause the video, find these three quotients, and then hit play and see how you did. Okay, for the first one, 12 divided by 3 is 4, and since they're both negative numbers, the negatives cancel each other out, giving me a positive 4 for an answer. For the second one, 18 divided by 3 is 6, and since the top is positive, the bottom is negative, that's one of each, so my answer is going to be a negative 6. For the last one, 24 divided by 8 is 3. And you'll notice 8 is positive, 24 is negative. I've got one of each, so that means my answer is negative 3. So now we're going to model and solve real-world problems using simple equations involving integer division. So now on 3 consecutive plays, the football team lost a total of 30 yards. The team lost the same number of yards on each play. Represent the number of yards lost on each play as a negative integer. So X is going to be yards lost. So if we did 3 of those plays, we got a negative 30 yards. So now I just need to solve for X, divide both sides by 3, and I get that X is a negative 10. They lost 10 yards every play. Here is our real-world example completed. Make sure to watch or to take a look at this and see how you did before moving on. Just a review of the whole section. Make sure you have these terms somewhere so that you can go back and look at them before the quiz and test.